Let's begin with the ongoing pandemic that has cost our country so much. Senator Harris, the coronavirus is not under control. Over the past week, Johns Hopkins reports that 39 states have had more COVID cases over the past 7 days than in the week before. 9 states have set new records. Even if a vaccine is released soon, the next administration will face hard choices. What would a Biden administration do in January and February that a Trump administration wouldn't do?
Well, the American people have witnessed what is the greatest failure of any presidential administration in the history of our country. And here are the facts. 210,000 dead people in our country in just the last several months. Over 7 million people who have contracted this disease. 1 in 5 businesses closed. We are looking at over 30 million people who in the last several months had to file for unemployment. And here's the thing. On January 28th, the vice president and the president were informed about the nature of this pandemic. They were informed that it's lethal in consequence, that it is airborne, that it will affect young people, and that it would be contracted because it is airborne. And they knew what was happening, and they didn't tell you. Can you imagine if you knew on January 28th, as opposed to March 13th, what they knew, what you might have done to prepare? They knew and they covered it up. The president said it was a hoax. They minimized the seriousness of it. The president said, you're on one side of his ledger if you wear a mask, you're on the other side of his ledger if you don't. And in spite of all of that, today they still don't have a plan. They still don't have a plan. Well, Joe Biden does. And our plan is about what we need to do around a national strategy for contact tracing, for testing, for administration of the vaccine, and making sure that it will be free for all. And we need to save our country, and Joe Biden is the best leader to do that, and frankly, this administration has forfeited their right to re-election based on this.
Thank you, Senator Harris. More than 210,000 Americans have died of COVID-19
in comparison to Biden.
The reality is, when you look at the Biden plan, it reads an awful lot like what President Trump and I and our task force have been doing every step of the way. I mean, quite frankly, when I look at their plan that talks about advancing testing, creating new PPE, developing a vaccine, it looks a little bit like plagiarism, which is something Joe Biden knows a little bit about. And I think the American people know that this is a president who has put the health of America first, and the American people, I believe with my heart, can be proud of the sacrifices they have made. It's saved countless American lives.
Yo, you can't say that when the
Whatever
president...
the vice president is claiming the administration has done, clearly it hasn't worked. When you're looking at over 210,000 dead bodies in our country, American lives that have been lost, families that are grieving.
Dr. Anthony Fauci and other experts say that most of the people who can be vaccinated need to be vaccinated. But half of Americans now say they wouldn't take a vaccine if it was released now. If the Trump administration approves a vaccine before or after the election, should Americans take it, and would you take it?
That is terrifying.
If the public health professionals, if Dr. Fauci, if the doctors tell us that we should take it, I'll be the first in line to take it, absolutely. But if Donald Trump tells us that we should take it, I'm not taking it.
The reality is that we're going to have a vaccine, Senator, in record time, in unheard of time, in less than a year. We have 5 companies in phase 3 clinical trials, and we're right now producing tens of millions of doses. The fact that you continue to undermine public confidence in a vaccine, if the vaccine emerges during the Trump administration, I think is unconscionable. And Senator, I just ask you, stop playing politics with people's lives. The reality is,
Mike
we will
Pence.
have a vaccine, we believe.
Oh, I hate him so much.
We'll have the capacity. You know, the reality is, when you talk about failure in this administration, we actually do know what failure looks like in a pandemic. It was 2009. The swine flu arrived in the United States. Thankfully, it ended up not being as lethal as the coronavirus. But before the end of the year, when Joe Biden was vice president of the United States, not 7.5 million people contracted the swine flu. 60 million Americans contracted the swine flu. If the swine flu had been as lethal as the coronavirus, in 2009, when Joe Biden was vice president, we would have lost 2 million American lives. His own chief of staff, Ron Klain, that it was pure luck.
14,000 people died.
Everything possible.
14,000 in comparison to 200.
And we
what
learned
an
from
insane
that.
false
equivalence.
One that hurts the Republican Party when you utter the actual numbers.
So let me tell you, first of all, the day I got the call from Joe Biden, it was actually a Zoom call, asking me to serve with him on this ticket was probably one of the most memorable days of my life. I thought about my mother, who came to the United States at the age of 19, gave birth to me at the age of 25 at Kaiser Hospital in Oakland, California. And the thought that I'd be sitting here right now, I know would make her proud, and she must be looking down on this. You know, Joe and I were raised in a very similar way. We were raised with values that are about hard work, and I think
Mike
Joe
Pence's
asked me to
dick
serve
off.
with him because
Your family.
I have a career
Rip
that
his dick
being
off.
elected. And then, of course, now I serve in the United States Senate as only the second black woman ever elected to the United States Senate. I serve on the Senate Intelligence Committee, where I've been in regular receipt of classified information about
so boring.
threats to our
No one
nation and
cares about
hotspots
your
around the world.
background.
I've traveled the world. I've met.
I never expected to be on this stage 4 years ago, so I know the feeling. But
What, as a white man?
Before the American theory.
As a born-again
The
Christian?
stakes have never
Like
been
what?
higher, but I think the choice is...
We now know, because of great investigative journalism, that
Mike
Donald
Pence's
Trump
eyes
paid
bleeding.
$750 in tax, $1,000,
that Joe
and
Biden
it was
shit.
like, no, $750.
Terrible optics.
We now know Donald Trump owes.
Senator Harris, the Biden-Harris campaign has proposed new programs to boost the economy, and you would pay for that new spending by raising $4 trillion in taxes on wealthy individuals and corporations. Some economists warn that could curb entrepreneurial ventures that fuel growth and create jobs. Would raising taxes put the recovery at risk? And you have 2 minutes to answer uninterrupted.
Thank you. On the issue of the economy, I think there couldn't be a more fundamental difference between Donald Trump and Joe Biden.
These questions suck. They just are letting these guys do talking points.
Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more.
And what he'll do with the money is invest it in the American.
A lot gets
and
left on the
through
table.
A plan that is. So, for example, for folks who want to go to a 2-year community college, it will be free. If you come from a family that makes less than $125,000, you'll go to a public university for free. And across the board, we'll make sure that if you have student loan debt, it's cut by $10,000. That's how Joe Biden thinks about the economy.
How do
which
Democrats
is about investing
fail
in the
at
people of our
delivering
country,
policy
as opposed to passing
in
a
a
tax
marketable
bill,
way
which had the benefit of
every
letting
time?
American.
Go back to the taxes.
Vice President Pence, your administration
Go
has
back to
been
the taxes.
predicting a rapid and
There's
robust
so many lines of
recovery.
attack here.
They want to bury our economy under a $2 trillion Green New Deal, which you were one of the original co-sponsors of in the United States Senate. They want to abolish fossil fuels and ban fracking, which would cost hundreds of thousands of American jobs all across the heartland. And Joe Biden wants to repeal all of the tariffs that President Trump put into effect to fight for American jobs and American workers.
If Kamala doesn't
opportunity in 4 more years of President
on the
Donald
latest
Trump,
negotiations,
2021 is going to be the biggest economic
this
year
is a
in the history
perfect
of this
opportunity
country.
for the latest negotiations for her to like fucking spear dick that.
Well, I mean, but I think this is supposed to be a debate based on fact and truth. And the truth and the fact is, Joe Biden has been very clear. He will not raise taxes on anybody who makes less than $400,000 a year.
He said he's going to repeal the Trump tax cuts.
Mr. Vice President, I'm speaking.
Well,
I'm speaking.
It'd be important if you said the truth. Joe Biden said twice in the debate last week that he's going to repeal the Trump tax cuts.
Every time Kamala Harris does that fake laugh
and
lets Mike Pence roll over her, 1,000 people decide not to vote for her. It is
not true.
Textbook Hillary
Is he only going to repeal part of the Trump tax?
We can then have a conversation.
Well, I hope we have a chance to talk about health care because Obamacare was a disaster.
Pence is dominating this
President
debate,
Trump and I have a plan,
and he is literally a wet blanket. How the f is this happening right now?
Once again,
if the media wasn't so liberal, I would literally think this is a setup with the way that this
and
format
Vice President
is.
Pence, I'd like to pose the
It is
first
designed so that
question
Pence
to
can just do whatever he wants.
This year we've seen
and not answer
record-setting
questions.
hurricanes in the South.
It's
Another one,
crazy.
hurricane. Senator Harris, as the Vice President mentioned, you co-sponsored the Green New Deal in Congress. But Vice President Biden said in last week's debate that he does not support the Green New Deal. But if you look at the Biden-Harris campaign website, it describes the Green New Deal as a crucial framework. What exactly would be the stance of a Biden-Harris administration toward the Green New Deal? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Sure. So first of all, I will repeat, and the American people know, that Joe Biden will not ban fracking. That is a fact. That is a fact.
Oh, sick, dude.
I will repeat that Joe Biden has been very clear. And so Joe believes, again, in science. I'll tell you something, Susan. I served, when I first got to the Senate, on the committee that's responsible for the environment. Do you know this administration took the word science off the website and then took the phrase climate change off the website? We have seen a pattern with this administration, which is they don't believe in science. It's about saying we're going to deal with it, but
we
we're
will
also
make sure our websites are up to date.
Donald Trump, when asked about the wildfires in California, and the question was, you know, the scientists...
Vice President Pence, do you believe that climate change
understands that climate change is an existential threat, but continues to use fossil fuels?
As I said,
the
Susan,
other one denies it at least.
Changing.
It was almost worse to admit it and
Senator
still do
Harris,
it. Kamala Harris about to pull a Hickenlooper and drink fracking juice on stage.
Reducing CO2.
The vice president earlier referred to, as part of what he thinks is an accomplishment, the president's trade war with China. You lost that trade war. You lost it. What ended up happening is because of a so-called trade war with China, America lost 300,000 manufacturing jobs.
Lost the trade war with China. Joe Biden never fought it. Joe Biden has been a cheerleader for communist China over the last several decades. And again, Senator Harris, you're entitled to your opinion. You're not entitled to your own facts. When Joe Biden was vice president, we lost 200,000 manufacturing jobs.
Vice President Pence, you're the former governor of Indiana. If Roe v. Wade is overturned, what would you want Indiana to do? Would you want your home state to ban all abortions? You have 2 minutes, uninterrupted.
Well, thank you for the question, but I'll use a little bit of my time to respond to that.
He has so much time because he walks over everyone else.
Soleimani, the Iranian
so he
general,
could just stall for half the debate.
Now, with regard to the Supreme Court of the United States, let me say President Trump and I could not be more enthusiastic about the opportunity to see Judge Amy Coney Barrett become Justice Amy Coney Barrett. And our hope is, in the hearing next week, unlike Justice Kavanaugh received with treatment from you and others, we hope she gets a fair hearing. And we particularly hope that we don't see the kind of attacks on her Christian faith that we saw before.
I hope this angers people to go out and at least vote.
Of the Judiciary Committee before.
Because I hate letting them get away with this shit.
Judge Barrett was being
They're so good at lying. He's so good at dodging. Like, he misdirected it back to, like,
Dick Durbin of Illinois
said
that it was
Amy Coney Barrett's Christianity.
On the issue of this nomination, Joe and I are very clear, as are the majority of the American people. We are 27 days before the decision about who will be the next president of the United States. And, you know, before, when this conversation has come up, you know, it's been about election year or election time. We're literally in an election. Over 4 million people have voted. But let's also look at what else is before the court. It's the Affordable Care Act. Like, literally in the midst of a public health pandemic. When over 210,000 people have died and 7 million people probably have what will be in the future considered a pre-existing condition because you contracted the virus. Donald Trump is in court right now trying to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. And I said it before, and it bears repeating. This means that there will be no more protections if they win
tied to the negotiations.
People with pre-existing conditions.
Tied to the negotiations.
This means
Donald Trump cares more about Amy Coney Barrett than the fucking stimulus negotiations.
They're trying to get rid of the Affordable Care Act.
I couldn't be more proud to serve as vice president to a president who stands without apology for the sanctity of human life. I'm pro-life. I don't apologize for it.
Pence is like, we're going down, at least I'm going to go down.
Joe Biden and Kamala
preaching
Harris
my
support
anti-abortion gospel to the American people. I don't care where it hurts us.
Speak about the Supreme Court, though. I think the American people really deserve an answer, Senator Harris. Are you and Joe Biden going to pack the court if Judge Amy Coney Barrett is confirmed? I mean, there have been 29 vacancies on the Supreme Court during presidential election years, from George Washington to Barack Obama. Presidents have nominated in all 29 cases. But your party is actually openly advocating adding seats to the Supreme Court, which has had 9 seats for 150 years, if you don't get your way. This is a classic case of if you can't win by the rules, you're going to change the rules.
I'm so glad we went through a little history lesson. Let's do that a little more. In 1864...
Well, I'd like you to answer the question.
No, Mr. Vice President, I'm speaking. I'm speaking. Okay.
Don't get frazzled, Kamala.
In 1864.
You look weak.
And
Senator Harris.
People, Susan, are voting right now. They'd like to know if you and Joe Biden are going to pack the Supreme Court if you don't get your way in this nomination.
I'm trying to answer you now.
American people deserve a straight answer.
You won't
and if you haven't
answer
figured it out
pre-existing
yet,
conditions.
the straight answer is they are
we'll
going to
cross that
pack
bridge
the
when we
Supreme
get there.
Court
Why the
if they somehow
fuck
win this
is he not
election.
answering any questions?
Men and women, I got to tell you,
think
people across this country, if you cherish our Supreme Court.
And do you know that of the 50 people who President Trump appointed to the Court of Appeals for lifetime appointments, not one is black? This is what they've been doing. You want to talk about packing a court? Let's have that discussion.
All right, thank you, Justice.
I just want the record to reflect she never answered the question.
Neither did you.
Maybe the next
You
debate,
answered
Joe
zero
Biden will answer the
questions.
question. But I think
Thank
the
you.
American people know the answer.
Thank you, Vice President.
And that, as Joe Biden said, that he believes that law enforcement has an implicit bias against minorities is a great insult to the men and women who serve in law enforcement. And I want everyone to know
Oh my
who
God.
puts on the uniform.
Oh my God,
of
there's a
law
fly on his
enforcement
head.
every day. And President Trump
Oh
and
my
I
God, there's a fly on his
stand
head.
with you. And it is remarkable that, that when Senator Tim Scott tried to pass a police reform bill,
Is it
you
still
got
there?
up and walked
Oh my God,
out of
it's
the
still
room.
there.
Still there.
And then you filibustered Senator Tim Scott's
Oh,
bill
that's it.
on the
The
Senate
debate
floor
over.
that would have provided new accountability,
Debate
new
over.
resources. Look, we
He will
don't have to
never
choose
recover.
between
That's
gonna be the
law
headline.
enforcement,
You
improving
can't
public
recover from
safety,
that.
and
No, it's
supporting
over.
our
It's
African
over.
American
Oh, he just
Thank you,
lost.
Vice
and
President.
all of our
Oh my
minorities.
God.
Under President
It's
Trump's
literally-
leadership,
Thank you,
we'll
Vice President.
always stand with law enforcement
still
and
there?
we'll do
Ryan,
what
it's
we've
still
done
there.
since day
Pence,
one,
thank
and
you.
we'll
Your time
improve
is
the
up.
lives of
Thank you, Vice
record
President
unemployment,
my
record
God.
investments in
Vice President
Pence,
education.
oh my God.
We'll fight for school choice for
telling
all
you,
of our
this is
members.
like
I'd like to respond.
She's going to
Old
start.
Testament level, like,
I will not sit here and be
layups
lectured by the Vice
for
President.
the Democrats.
I'm the only one on this stage who has prosecuted the big banks
Oh my God,
for
it's still
taking
there.
advantage of America's homeowners. I'm the only one on this stage who prosecuted for-profit colleges for taking advantage of our veterans.
He's rotting.
Bye.
Looks like it's gone.
No,
And-
still there.
Part of a
No, it's still there.
He
Oh, he
he
flew
called
away.
Mexicans.
He condemned the KKK, neo-Nazis, and white supremacists, and has done so repeatedly. You're concerned that he doesn't condemn neo-Nazis. President Trump has Jewish grandchildren. His daughter and son-in-law are Jewish. He respects and cherishes
But he
all
still
of the
said it.
American
Who
people.
gives a shit?
But you're talking.
One of the reasons that Joe decided to run for president is after Charlottesville, which we talked about earlier. It so troubled him and upset him, like it did all of us, that there was that kind of hate and division. What propelled Joe to run for president was to see that over the course of the last 4 years, what Brecklin described has been happening. Joe has a long-standing reputation of working across the aisle and working in a bipartisan way. And that's what he's going to do as president. We fight for each person's voice through their vote, and we get engaged in this election because you have the ability through your work and through eventually your vote
Thank you,
to
Senator
determine
Harris.
the future of our country and what its leadership looks like.
These
Senator
are kind of
Harris,
lame.
thank you, Vice President
Like the
Pence. Thank you
civic,
so
the
much for
calls
being
for
with us
civic duty
tonight.
and unity. I
We want to
always
thank
find
also,
to be kind of lame.
and
Maybe
most
it's
of
just
all,
me
our
though.
the second presidential debate is next week on October 15th.
God, Susan
a town
Page
hall-style debate
was so
in Miami.
ass.
Yeah, not an impressive performance at all.
God damn, she was so doo-doo. Holy shit. Can I just, before we even get started, can I just say how insane it is, how absolute dog shit it is that Mike Pence, who is supposed to be the coronavirus task force leader, who literally got away with the murder of 210,000 Americans and counting thus far in the beginning of this debate, where whether it's a consequence of the format itself or whether because Kamala Harris did not stress it enough or a combination of the two, like the fact that this guy was able to not address so much of the rampant corruption and criminal negligence, like that is a dub on its own. Luckily, vice presidential debates don't mean anything. They're even less meaningless than the presidential debates. They're not going to change people's minds. But my God, that was unacceptable. That was completely unacceptable if you ask me. I don't know. I mean, I have so many thoughts. I want to ask you guys what you think. I'm not going to speak any further for the time being, but what did you guys think about all that?
Look, I thought the debate was, I hated the questions. I didn't like the questions. And I think that Kamala yielded too much to the actual rules of the debate, and Mike Pence didn't. And as a result of that, she looked like she got steamrolled on multiple occasions, in my opinion, where, you know, she had an opportunity to respond back. He didn't even answer the question, and he would just attack her on her previous point, and then that would be the end of it. He would have the last word, and then they'd move on, and Kamala wouldn't have anything to say about it. Mike Pence didn't yield to the rules of the debate, but I don't think that really, I don't think people are going to really, I don't know. I hope that people see it that way, but
to pick up on that, kind of, you know, Kamala is not much of a poker player, so you can pretty much read on her what she's up to. And very early on, the first time Mike Pence like even piped up a tiny bit while she was in her 2 minutes of uninterrupted time, she kind of theatrically said, you know, I am speaking. You know,
yeah, that sucks.
And she repeated that phrase, I am speaking, probably 5, 6, 7 times throughout the debate, which means that was a strategy. Like, that was something she practiced. So why is she doing that? I think she didn't exactly get steamrolled. I think she allowed him to steamroll her.
Yes.
Because she wanted him to look like a boob in front of the voters that she's trying to cement. And those are the people that we were talking about earlier, older people and suburban voters.
Yes. And I hate that. I hate that more than anything. You're absolutely right. That's exactly what I was thinking as well. And that frustrates me more than anything else. That is a classic. That's a textbook. Like, look at this. Look at him being an asshole, which the debate format does not lend itself to Mike Pence looking like an asshole as much as Donald Trump, because Mike Pence is a better, more trained debater / politician than Donald Trump. We forget he's like a Koch brothers. He's like Koch brothers inside guy in the administration. He's not going to fuck that up. So it wasn't going to happen. It wasn't going to happen in the same way that Donald Trump did. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe liberals saw it differently. But what I'm deeply frustrated by is that, look, that is a telltale way to signal misogyny and toxic masculinity, right? Here's another woman being cut off again by another guy, by an older guy. Once again, a qualified woman being cut off. And I think that's a horrible strategy. It's a horrible strategy to win the optics game, because the American people demonstrably have not cared and still do not care about misogyny. And I mean white women specifically, that voted, the majority of which voted for Donald Trump over Hillary Clinton in 2016. I don't think that that's a winning strategy, and that triggers the fuck out of me. I'm not going to lie. What do you think? Maybe I'm wrong, though.
I think that because so many of the people in the suburbs and some of the senior citizens, 65 plus, have turned on Trump because of his style, that they're trying to kind of shoehorn Pence into that same style. Look, he's a bully, he's a ruffian, just like Trump, and so it might work for that select demographic that they're going for. And her, you know, ultimately her goal was to not lose this. You just repeat some of your talking points. When he interrupts you, you become indignant about it. And then you make a lot of the news coverage and the commentary after the debate a question of, was he rude? You know, was he a bore? What, you know, was he misogynistic, and did he cut her off? And if that's what you can get the pundits talking about and get the hot takes, you know, ripping about the next day, then you've got at least a push, if not a win. And a push is a win at this stage of the election.
And the fly, and I think that the fly, like, seriously, it's so stupid, but like everybody, that's going to be what everybody's talking about. It's what everybody's for sure. It's so dumb, but that fly on his head, we're at a point in American politics where that is going to be the headliner, and it is going to feed into just the state of the Trump campaign and Trump administration. Hot pile of dog shit, right? And flies are racing to land and feast on it, right? That's what's gonna take over the debate, and I think that's a win for the Biden campaign to some degree.
If we know anything about the media, they cannot resist a good metaphor.
That's for sure. This is the most, but beyond the fly, like the fly is basically the straw that broke the camel's back in the circumstances, but like this has been the most biblical fucking like election cycle I've ever witnessed in my entire life, in my limited amount of like looking at election cycles. The skies have opened up. You have a plague. Locusts. You have a plague. You have fucking locusts. I mean, what the fuck is going on? I'm not necessarily a spiritual person, but my God, it sure looks like we are in the end times here. Joe Biden also very quickly capitalized on that. The fly thing. He said, pitch in $5 to help this campaign fly, Jack. And it's him holding up a fly swatter that already has 57,000 retweets. And that has been up for 10 minutes. So it's blowing up. I even retweeted it. It's actually pretty good. It's insane. It's absolutely insane that thing fucking stood on. That thing stood on top of Mike Pence's dome for way too long. I was just trying to say, and I know people will get mad at me for this, so do not misunderstand what I'm trying to say. What I understand that talking over women is frustrating to women, except women don't vote that way demonstrably. Like, they don't vote because they saw another woman get talked over. Maybe you might be that way, but ultimately, in 2016, we literally saw women not give a fuck about Donald Trump, saying that he would grab women by the pussy. So my point is, the patriarchy is so strong that internalized misogyny and paired up with white supremacy still pushes women to vote not along gender lines, but instead along the lines with whatever party they associate with. So trying to hammer on that point instead of fucking rolling over Mike Pence like Kamala Harris had the capacity to do was, in my opinion, truly a lost moment. I mean, I wanted to see way more from Kamala Harris. And like, agreed. She was kind of dog shit in the primaries too, with a few notable exceptions, like I was that girl or whatever, that moment against Joe Biden. But I really thought she could roll over Mike Pence a little bit more. And every single time I see Kamala Harris like pull back deliberately, as you pointed out, Ryan, it is deeply frustrating because I want to see her fucking choke slam him. I wanted to see her verbally abuse Mike Pence. I've said this about Donald Trump and Joe Biden last debate. I think Americans are, they want to return to normalcy, but they also want someone to be a vector for all the frustration that they feel. And I was personally incredibly frustrated, even with the allegiance that I have cultivated with the Kamala Harris-Joe Biden campaign in this situation, regardless of whether I agree with their worldview or not. I wanted them to get one on the administration, like finally hold them fucking accountable. You know what I mean? Like, and the fact that Mike Pence, the leader of the coronavirus task force, got away with straight up murder was devastating, if you ask me. But it doesn't matter overall. You're right. We're 10-point lead. And, you know, all Kamala has to do is not lose. And she did not. She did not lose at all. But still a lost opportunity.
Frustrating for me as a lib to watch, you know, layup opportunities such as, most frustratingly, the stimulus. I mean, opportunity to call out Donald Trump for backing out of the stimulus negotiations. And there were multiple opportunities to do so, and she didn't capitalize on those opportunities. It was frustrating to watch her, at times, Pence roll over Harris, and then she would just take it and then move on to the next topic. Again, going back to what I originally said about him getting the last word. I want to see her respond to him, and I want to see her call him out. I wanted to see her call him out a little bit more and hold him accountable. And I think he got away with a lot tonight.
I have to say, it is really, really fucking awful that we have two candidates on stage. One's like, yeah, I don't give a fuck about climate change. It's not real. The other one's like, oh, we believe the science, but also not only do we believe the science, but we still will continue fracking. We love to frack. I promise you, I will kiss every fracker in this country. Now, there are electoral reasons for why you got to do that. Pennsylvania being one of the key reasons why Joe Biden has been in support of fracking since the primaries, and very rarely talks about how, like whether or not he would ban it or when he would actually phase fracking out by 2050. You know, that's rarely ever mentioned on purpose. It's the biggest reason between Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders, for example, in the primaries that everyone was talking about. But it is truly an indication for someone like myself who likes to look to the future of what a Democrat-run White House would look like. It is spelling disaster. It just reminds me of Barack Obama sitting in front of that massive crowd saying, you know, a lot of people won't know this, but a lot of people act like this isn't true, but fracking grew under my administration.
Yeah.
Like, that's what it reminds me of. It reminds me of Gavin Newsom saying, climate change is real, pass it on. Oh, like a month after he gave one of his friends like an allowance to go out and frack in the state of California. You know what I mean? It's like Democrats saying like, we love fracking, but we also love the environment, while Republicans saying we love fracking and we don't give a fuck about the environment. Like, as though that dynamic will like truly change the course of history away from the inevitable cataclysmic climate disaster that we're facing right now.
Right. You can't say we are going to be led by the science and then say we absolutely will not ban fracking.
Yeah,
like,
we love the frack.
You can't say that. You can't say those two things. Like, the science dictates a ban on fracking. Like, there's no other way around it. That's what the science says. I mean, we're in the middle of a pandemic. You know, this maniac in the White House is just not. Nobody cares right now.
Exactly.
Like, they could have been like, yeah, like, we're following the science. We need to phase out fracking.
Okay, but regardless of what they say, you are nailing it, which is that's what the Rust Belt gives a fuck about. Okay, a second stimulus package that is an absolute necessity, that has not been that's been deemed an absolute necessity by not just the average Joe, which of course both parties can overlook and not give a fuck about openly, but also economists are saying that we need a second stimulus package immediately. And the fact that that was not discussed, like that wasn't the main point of contention tonight, is such a fucking missed opportunity that if we were not going up against a horrible administration, if the Democrats were not running against the Trump administration that has been demonstrably catastrophic to America in the aftermath of ongoing racial strife and also, of course, economic devastation caused by a pandemic that they otherwise avoided and still continue to misinform the public on, oh my God, they would be getting fucking rolled. Like, I can't stop but think that, I can't help but notice that if Donald Trump had not destroyed his coronavirus response, he would be destroying the election right now. He would be winning. The economy would look otherwise the same. Like, the economy would look pretty much the same, which he's done decently on until recently, especially from the point of the stock markets, right? Especially from the point of markets, he would be absolutely destroying the Democratic opposition right now. So we are, I guess, in a weird way, misfortunate for having Donald Trump in power, but also fortunate from the point of view of like Democrats winning.